Hi, I'm Dr. David Dobson. Welcome to Conversations. Today, my guest is Dan Pearson. Dan is a Master of Science in Management candidate at the University of Lethbridge. Today, we will discuss his master's thesis, The Role of Sense-Making Narratives in AI Adoption Among Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, which explores the human side of technology adoption. It's a pleasure to have you on my show. Dan,
Thank you. Great opportunity. I've been loving your podcast so far.
Dan, your journey back to academia and your research on human side of technology seems deeply personal. What led you to this particular research topic?
Yeah, it was very personal. Uh, I'm returning to academia. It wasn't just about the money, I'll tell you that. It was more about a decision for my family, right? For a long time, my personal career was really focused on my own goals, but having four kids and raising them has really changed my perception, right? I wanted to be more present in their lives, learn something about them that would equip them to face the challenges in the future because I'm not always going to be around. So that shift changed my focus in to the framework of systems thinking. This idea that everything is connected and everything interacts with each other. Professionally, I began focusing on helping businesses connect their big picture strategy with the realities on the ground. Right, finding practical actions that turn these big ideas into actual success. And this led me to my current research, which is an AI adoption paradox, where we try to understand why AI adoption is so slow right now, especially when the tools are clearly powerful and the few companies that do adopt it, they love it.
Hmm, yeah, very interesting. Dan, you argue that the main barrier to AI adoption isn't cost or complexity, but the
Yeah.
process which you call sense making. Can you explain what sense making is?
Yeah, sense making is fundamentally how we build our internal stories, how we make sense of confusing situations. We all do it. It's one. It also has some like key concepts that we have to think about, and that is deeply tied to the construction of our identities. For example, business owners, especially, they interpret new information through a lens of who they think they are, what the past experiences have made that way, and not just the raw data and the sales figures.
Yeah.
It's also got a social and a retrospective process where we try to figure out what we understand about the world through our peers, right? And through the outcomes of actions we take. And we're
Mhm.
constantly looking back and reevaluating those experiences. But I think the most interesting and the strongest point of it is that we use this reality of what seems plausible rather than considering if it's accurate.
Mhm.
And we use that to work that workable narrative to move forward.
Mhm.
And then when it comes to something complex and confusing like AI, many of these owners fall back to established frameworks, right?
Yeah.
This leads to statements like it's just another email program, or it's an
Mhm.
automated writing tool, or
Yeah.
it's not even relevant to my business.
Mhm.
And well, these stories feel safe and familiar, but they severely limit the imagination of AI and what can actually do.
Mhm.
And unless there's a perceived crisis,
Mhm.
promoting them to reconsider, they usually stick with those initial interpretations.
Mhm.
And this is why AI adoption differs from the past technological shifts, like the
Mhm.
personal computer, where its
Yeah.
functions were straightforward and laid out. AI's capabilities are diverse, right? Making
Mhm.
it far more complex scenario.
Mhm.
And interesting though is I actually found sense making
Mhm.
in research done during COVID. And it was
Mhm.
used to understand why people acted in unexpected ways. And
Mhm.
I agree, it's a powerful framework for understanding behavior when
Mhm.
situations are confusing and uncertain.
Mhm. Dan, you're currently interviewing small and medium-sized enterprise leaders. What are some of the initial insights you have discovered?
Well, that's fun because I'm right in the thick of it now. I've been connecting with many small business owners and entrepreneurs, but mostly listening. I let them explain how they built their business, what their
Mhm.
vision is for the future, and how they see the world. But
Mhm.
only after that is when I ask them about where AI fits into their plans.
Mhm.
And this is what's the striking contrast is these entrepreneurs are incredibly confident and
Mhm.
articulate, but
Mhm.
when they talk about their own markets and their own strategies and the way the world is, but the moment AI comes up, that clarity often starts to evaporate. Their stories get a little
Mhm.
bit fuzzy,
Mhm.
things become uncertain, and their
Mhm.
plans start to break down. And
Mhm.
I think this is a really big problem because these are the people that we're using to drive the future
Mhm.
of Canadians' economy.
Mm-hmm.
This is also a really good example of how sense making is in action, right? They can easily tell a compelling story about their industry because it's part of their narrative and they're perceived, and that's perceived with clarity, right? But AI disrupts that. So they fall back to that traditional framing. And this is also reflected in Stats Canada surveys, where it showed that a majority of the non-adopters state that AI is not relevant or not needed. But it also shows that the barrier isn't purely technical, it's probably interpretive.
Mm, very interesting. Dan, your research relies on capturing authentic sense-making narratives. How did you go about collecting these stories?
Oh, my method is about capturing a rich and in-depth storytelling through business case studies. Um, I start by asking about their business, their passions, their challenge, and as they talk, I'm listening for current interactions with AI because these can be obvious and they can also be hidden, right? The goal is to keep AI in the picture, but not make it the focus of the discussion, right? I've found that if I ask about it directly, I get the standard answers, the ones you always hear in the news and the media about what AI means to them, right? But by letting them tell their business story,
Mm,
I actually hear their authentic perceptions, and
mm,
this is where I find the real story of AI.
mm, very good. Dan, your research mentions exploring the stories and metaphors business leaders use to make sense of AI. Could you give us an example of common metaphors you have heard?
That's an interesting question because it's less about the single spoken or repeated phrases, and it's more about an idea that I keep hearing. And that's
Hmm.
what I call a common hidden metaphor because they all
Okay.
see, or most people see
Hmm.
AI as a double edged sword, right?
Hmm.
On one side, they're excited about this potential
Hmm.
for efficiency and what it could do and all these new possibilities. But on the other side, they also see the negatives. And these are practical, right? Security
Hmm.
risks, AI hallucinations,
Hmm.
or just not being able to work when you need it.
Hmm.
But I'm hearing a much deeper and hidden
Hmm.
personal fear, and
Hmm.
that's that AI could devalue their own
Hmm.
expertise.
Hmm.
And what's interesting is this creates this really real sense of ambivalence, which is opposing feelings that pull you in two directions at once. They see the good, they see the bad, and that creates an ambiguity that makes it hard to move forward. My
Hmm.
premise is that isn't it because they don't simply understand AI and its technicalities? They
Hmm.
also see the challenges, but I
Hmm.
believe that maybe there's a subconscious process here being protective of their
Hmm.
secret sauce,
Hmm.
right? That intuition and experience that makes their businesses successful.
You mentioned common hidden metaphor. If a common metaphor sees AI as a threat, how can we help leaders construct a more productive narrative, one that sees AI as a powerful tool?
I This is where I see and understand sense making to become really great. It helps us see the pillar of facts, right? Those key beliefs and assumptions that owners build their story on. And once we see their current framework, we can help them move past it. The key is to reframe AI, not
Mm,
or to
mm,
reframe it as a partner, not
mhm.
a competitor, right? The goal isn't to replace human expertise, but to
Yeah.
augment it, right?
Mm,
Make it work for them.
mm,
It's critical to remember that the secret sauce that they've been protecting, that
mm,
tact knowledge, can't be replaced by AI, and
mm,
that's yet,
mm.
right? But currently, it's brilliant at handling explicit knowledge, like the data, the
Yeah.
reports, and any repetitive processes. And this frees up, our teams to focus on what they do best: the
Yeah.
strategy, the creativity, and of course, building relationships. Um, and then, so in the end, we need to build a new story with that new
Mm,
framework that
mm,
AI amplifies their expertise
mm.
rather than threatening it.
Yeah. Great insight. Dan, if AI can't replicate that secret sauce of tacit knowledge, what are some of the practical ways business leaders can use AI as a cooperative solution to manage explicit knowledge about feeling like it's a threat to the expertise?
This is where we must be mindful of how
Mm,
sense making can block us from seeing the real
mm,
potential and the real challenges around AI. A great starting point is to consciously separate the two types of knowledge, right? To get a clear picture. First, identify tasks based on explicit knowledge. Those are the generated reports, the scheduling, just analyzing simple customer feedback. And then you can use a pilot AI in these low stake areas to demonstrate a value without risk or major impact, right? At the same
Yeah.
time, you can interpret or intentionally preserve the tasks that require that tact
Mm,
knowledge. The thing
mm,
like high stakes negotiations,
mm,
mentoring your team, and those
mm,
key strategic decisions.
mm,
Those have to be human led, right?
mm,
This approaches frames of AI as a partner
mm,
that handles that tedious work rather than uh, taking it away, and it turns our
mm,
strengths and elevates our own core expertise.
mm. Yeah, neat. Dan, what is one practical step a small business leader can take today to begin shifting their own mindset and embrace AI?
My advice is to start small by testing your own sense making. First, pause yourself and ask yourself, what's the story I'm telling about AI? What's stopping me from even considering it here? Are you framing it as too complex or
Mm,
is it a threat?
mm,
But once you identify that story, challenge it. Have a simple experimentation. One way you can do it is go and get a free AI tool
yeah.
and just ask it some questions, right? Generate a picture, have some fun
Mm,
with it. The
mm,
point is to let yourself see firsthand
mm,
what it can and can't do.
mm,
That direct experience allows you to build your
mm,
own worldview based
mm,
on that reality, not the
mm,
hype and the fear that you hear
mm.
from others.
Yeah,
It's a small action, but it begins to loosen that grip of the old narrative.
yeah. Dan, what's next for you, both in your academic work and beyond?
Academically, my immediate goal is to finish this thesis, right?
Mm,
Publish these case studies and get
mm,
these key players the true voice that they need in the conversation of AI.
yeah.
Long term, my vision is to start continuing to bridge that gap between research and
Mm,
practice, right? To
mm,
help business owners and policymakers develop those strategies that embrace human sense making,
mm,
become stronger in the business community, and
mm,
are these are the essential people for the Canadian economy.
mm.
And on a personal level, it brings it all back full circle.
Yeah.
This is my way that I can show my kids that we don't have to be afraid of complexity,
Mm,
and instead it's something we should engage with, understand, and shape it for the better. So
yeah.
I really want to teach them how to make sense of the real world.
Thank you for sharing your journey and research with us, Dan. Best wishes in completing your thesis.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great to talk with you.